When my mother-in-law accused me of trapping her precious son into marriage for his money, she had no idea that I was the one who insisted on a prenuptial agreement to protect both our assets. The look on her face when the truth finally came out would be worth every month of hell she put me through, but by then, the damage to our family would already be irreversible. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Alexandra Sterling, and I never imagined that marrying the love of my life would transform me into a villain in someone else's narrative. The story begins not with wedding bells or romantic proposals, but with the moment I realized that financial independence and emotional intelligence would become the armor I needed to survive a battle I never wanted to fight. Growing up as the daughter of successful entrepreneurs in Portland, Oregon, I learned early that money conversations require clarity, boundaries, and mutual respect. My parents, Dr. Catherine Sterling and Marcus Sterling, built their wealth through a combination of medical practice and strategic real estate investments, but more importantly, they taught me that financial security comes from understanding your worth and protecting your interests through careful planning rather than emotional manipulation. This upbringing shaped my approach to every major life decision, including the moment I fell in love with James Morrison during our final year at Northwestern University. James was studying architecture, while I pursued my MBA with a focus on sustainable business development. Our relationship developed through late-night study sessions in the library, shared ambitions about creating positive environmental impact through our respective careers, and countless conversations about building a future together that honored both our individual goals and our partnership. James came from a different financial background than mine. His family owned a successful construction company in suburban Chicago, Morrison and Sons Construction, which had been passed down through 3 generations. While certainly comfortable, their wealth was tied up in business assets, equipment, and real estate holdings that provided steady income but required constant management and reinvestment. His mother, Patricia Morrison, had married into the family business and devoted her entire adult life to supporting her husband's career while raising their only child. The differences in our family dynamics became apparent during our engagement period, though I initially interpreted them as minor adjustments that any couple navigates when blending different backgrounds and expectations. My family welcomed James with genuine warmth, appreciating his work ethic, his respectful manner, and his obvious devotion to me. They included him in business discussions, sought his opinions on various projects, and treated him as an equal partner in conversations about our future together. Patricia's approach to our relationship was markedly different from the beginning. She maintained polite civility during family gatherings, but I noticed subtle patterns of behavior that suggested underlying concerns about my suitability for her son. She would make comments about James's previous girlfriend, Rebecca, who apparently came from a family with deep roots in their community and shared similar values about traditional family role. She would ask pointed questions about my career ambitions and whether I planned to continue working after marriage, often framing these inquiries as concern for James's happiness, rather than genuine interest in my professional goal. The proposal itself was everything I could have hoped for in terms of romance and thoughtfulness. James had planned an elaborate weekend trip to the Oregon coast, where we hiked to a secluded cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. As the sun set over the water, he presented me with a ring he had designed himself, incorporating sustainable materials and ethical gemstones that reflected our shared values about environmental responsibility. His words were heartfelt and genuine, expressing not just his love but his admiration for my intelligence, ambition, and commitment to making a positive difference in the world. However, the celebration period that followed revealed the first significant cracks in what I had hoped would be a harmonious blending of our family. While my parents immediately began planning engagement parties and discussing wedding logistics with enthusiasm and joy, Patricia's reaction was notably restrained. She congratulated us with appropriate words, but her body language conveyed something closer to resignation than excitement about gaining a daughter-in-law. The tension escalated during our first joint family dinner following the engagement announcement. Patricia had invited both families to their family home, a beautiful colonial-style house that showcased 3 generations of Morrison family history through photographs, heirlooms, and carefully maintained traditional decor. The evening began pleasantly enough, with conversations about wedding planning, potential venues, and the logistics of coordinating celebrations between Portland and Chicago. The atmosphere shifted when my father mentioned our family's approach to major financial decisions, including the importance of prenuptial agreements as tools for protecting both parties in any significant partnership. This was not presented as a demand or ultimatum, but simply as information about how our family approached marriage, as both an emotional commitment and a financial partnership that benefited from clear communication and mutual protection. Patricia's response was immediate and visceral. Her face flushed with color, her posture stiffened, and her voice took on a tone of barely controlled offense as she responded to what she clearly interpreted as an insult to her son's character and intentions. "Are you suggesting that James would marry Alexandra for financial gain?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of wounded maternal pride and class consciousness that I was only beginning to understand. My father, experienced in navigating delicate business negotiations, attempted to clarify that prenuptial agreements serve to protect both parties and actually strengthen marriages by eliminating financial uncertainty and potential future conflict. He explained that in their own marriage, he and my mother had established clear financial boundaries that allowed them to build wealth together while maintaining individual autonomy and decision-making power. But Patricia was not interested in rational explanations or alternative perspective. In her worldview, the suggestion of a prenuptial agreement represented a fundamental lack of trust and an accusation that her son was somehow unworthy or potentially predatory in his approach to marriage. She interpreted the conversation as evidence that my family considered themselves superior to hers and that I was approaching the marriage with calculating self-interest rather than genuine love. What Patricia did not understand, and what I had not yet found the right moment to explain, was that I was actually the primary advocate for establishing a prenuptial agreement. This was not motivated by suspicion of James's intentions or concern about his financial stability, but by my own experience with business partnerships and my understanding of how financial clarity strengthens rather than undermines committed relationships. Through my MBA program and my family's business experience, I had learned that the majority of relationship conflicts stem from miscommunication about money, differing expectations about financial responsibility, and the stress that comes from financial uncertainty during major life transitions. Prenuptial agreements, when approached as collaborative planning tools rather than defensive measures, actually create the foundation for stronger partnerships by ensuring that both parties understand their rights, responsibilities, and shared goals. Additionally, my personal financial situation was more complex than appearances might suggest. While I came from a family with significant assets, I had also been building my own independent wealth through investments, consulting work, and a small business I had started during graduate school. My consulting firm, Sterling Sustainability Solutions, specialized in helping small businesses implement environmentally responsible practices while improving their profitability. The company had grown rapidly during my final year of school, generating substantial revenue and requiring careful management of intellectual property, client relationships, and ongoing financial obligation. I wanted a prenuptial agreement not to protect inherited wealth from James, but to ensure that the business I had built independently would remain under my control regardless of how our marriage evolved over time. This was particularly important because I planned to expand the company significantly after graduation, potentially taking on partners, investors, and employees whose livelihoods would depend on the stability and clear ownership structure of the business. Furthermore, I believed that James deserved the same protection for his potential inheritance of the family construction business. Morrison & Sons Construction represented 3 generations of hard work, relationship building, and reputation development within their community. If something unexpected happened to our marriage, James should not have to worry about protecting his family's legacy or navigating complex property division that could threaten the business that employed dozens of people and supported multiple families. Unfortunately, my attempts to explain these motivations to Patricia were consistently misinterpreted through the lens of her existing suspicions about my character and intention. Every rational argument I presented about the benefits of financial clarity was heard as evidence that I was calculating and unromantic. Every example I gave of successful marriages that had been strengthened by prenuptial agreements was dismissed as irrelevant to our situation because those couples supposedly did not have real love like James and I shared. The situation deteriorated further when Patricia began sharing her concerns with extended family members, friends, and community members who had known James since childhood. Rather than discussing her feelings directly with James or attempting to understand my perspective through open conversation, she began building a coalition of supporters who shared her interpretation of events and reinforced her belief that I represented a threat to her son's happiness and financial security. These conversations took place without my knowledge initially, but their effects became apparent through subtle changes in how James's extended family interacted with me during social gatherings. Cousins who had previously been friendly became politely distant. Family friends who had welcomed me warmly during our early relationship began asking pointed questions about my background, my career plans, and my family's expectations for the marriage. Most painfully, I began to notice changes in James's own behavior and confidence about our relationship. While he remained loving and supportive in private, he became increasingly uncomfortable during family gatherings, where tension was obvious but never directly addressed. He found himself in the impossible position of trying to mediate between his mother's concerns and his commitment to our relationship, a situation that created stress and confusion that neither of us had anticipated during our engagement period. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My professional background in business consulting had taught me to approach conflicts systematically, focusing on underlying interests rather than stated positions and looking for solutions that address everyone's legitimate concerns, rather than trying to determine who was right or wrong in their perspective. Applying this framework to our family situation, I could understand that Patricia's resistance to the prenuptial agreement stemmed from deeper fears about losing her close relationship with James, and concerns about whether I shared her values about family commitment and loyalty. However, understanding her perspective did not mean I was willing to compromise on protecting my business interests, or abandon my belief that financial clarity would benefit our marriage in the long term. The challenge was finding a way to address her emotional concerns, while maintaining the practical protections that I knew were necessary for both James and myself. I proposed a series of family meetings where we could discuss everyone's concerns openly and work together to develop a prenuptial agreement that addressed practical needs while honoring the emotional significance of our commitment to each other. I suggested involving a family mediator or financial counselor who could help facilitate these conversations in a neutral environment where everyone's perspectives could be heard and respected. Patricia's response to these suggestions revealed the depth of her opposition to the entire concept. She interpreted my willingness to involve professional mediators as further evidence that I was treating marriage as a business transaction rather than a sacred commitment. She argued that couples who truly loved each other should not need legal documents to protect their interests, because love itself was sufficient protection against future conflicts or misunderstanding. This philosophical difference about the relationship between love and practical planning created an impasse that threatened to overshadow all the positive aspects of our engagement and wedding planning process. Every conversation about guest lists, ceremony details, or honeymoon plans was colored by the underlying tension about the prenuptial agreement and what it represented to different family members. The conflict reached a critical point during a family dinner in late spring, approximately 3 months before our planned summer wedding. Patricia had invited both families to celebrate James's promotion to project manager at Morrison & Sons Construction, an achievement that represented significant professional growth and increased responsibility within the family business. The evening began with genuine celebration and pride about James's career advancement. He had worked tirelessly to prove himself within the company, taking on challenging projects and demonstrating leadership skills that impressed both his father and the other senior manager. His promotion came with substantial salary increases, equity participation in certain projects, and the promise of greater involvement in strategic decision-making for the company's future direction. However, as the evening progressed and wine loosened inhibitions, Patricia began making comments that revealed her true feelings about our relationship and her interpretation of my motivations for marrying James. She started by making seemingly innocent remarks about how nice it must be for me to marry into a successful family business, then progressed to more pointed observations about the timing of my interest in James coinciding with his career advancement. The conversation reached its breaking point when Patricia, emboldened by alcohol and the supportive presence of family members who shared her concerns, made a direct accusation that shattered any pretense of polite family harmony. "I think we all know what this is really about," she said, looking directly at me with an expression of barely controlled hostility. "Alexandra has been planning this from the beginning. She saw an opportunity to secure her future by marrying into our family business, and now she wants a prenuptial agreement to protect the wealth she is planning to extract from our family's hard work." The silence that followed was deafening. James's face went pale with shock and embarrassment. My parents exchanged glances that conveyed their disbelief at the accusation and their concern about how to respond appropriately. The extended family members present seemed equally shocked by Patricia's directness, though some nodding heads suggested that this perspective had been discussed in previous private conversations. This was the moment that would define the rest of our relationship and determine whether James and I could build a marriage that honored both our love for each other and our individual integrity and value. I could have responded with anger, defending myself against accusations that were both hurtful and completely inaccurate. I could have pointed out the irony of being accused of gold digging when I had more personal assets than James and had been advocating for a prenuptial agreement specifically to protect both our interests. Instead, I chose to respond with the calm professionalism that had served me well in difficult business negotiations and challenging consulting situations. I recognized that this moment required strategic thinking rather than emotional reaction, and that my response would be remembered and analyzed by everyone present for years to come. "Patricia," I said, my voice steady despite the emotional turmoil I was experiencing internally, "I understand that you are concerned about James's happiness and security. As someone who loves him deeply, I share those concerns. That is exactly why I have been advocating for a prenuptial agreement that protects both of our interests and ensures that our marriage is built on clear communication and mutual respect rather than assumptions and misunderstanding." I paused to allow my words to register before continuing with information that I had been planning to share with the family but had not yet found the appropriate moment to discuss. "However, I think there may be some misunderstanding about our respective financial situations and the motivations behind the prenuptial agreement. Perhaps this is a good time to clarify some facts that might help everyone understand why I believe financial transparency will strengthen rather than threaten our marriage." The room remained silent, but I could sense that I had captured everyone's attention and that they were prepared to listen to whatever revelation I was about to share. "The prenuptial agreement that I have been proposing is not designed to protect inherited wealth from James or to secure access to the Morrison family business asset. It is designed to protect the business that I have built independently and to ensure that James's inheritance of your family company remains secure regardless of what happens in our marriage." I reached into my purse and pulled out financial documents that I had brought to share with the family if the opportunity arose during the evening. Sterling Sustainability Solutions, the consulting firm I founded during graduate school, generated $340,000 in revenue last year and is projected to exceed $500,000 this year. I own the company outright, including all intellectual property, client relationships, and growth potential. The business is valued at approximately $800,000 based on recent appraisals, and I have been approached by 2 larger firms interested in acquisition or partnership arrangement. The numbers hung in the air like a revelation that reframed everything that had been said and assumed about my motivations and intentions. Patricia's face showed the confusion of someone processing information that contradicted her fundamental understanding of the situation. "Additionally," I continued, "I have personal investments and savings totaling approximately $150,000, which I have accumulated through consulting work, careful financial planning, and investment strategies that my parents taught me from a young age. I am not marrying James for financial security because I have already achieved financial independence through my own work and planning." The transformation in the room's atmosphere was palpable. Family members who had been nodding along with Patricia's accusations now looked uncomfortable and uncertain. James's expression showed pride mixed with surprise, as he had known about my business success but had not realized the full scope of my financial independence. The prenuptial agreement I have been proposing would ensure that my business remains under my control and that James's inheritance of Morrison and Sons construction is protected from any potential complications that could arise from our marriage. This is not about distrust or calculation. This is about respect for what we have both built independently and commitment to supporting each other's success rather than threatening it. Patricia's response to this revelation was not the embarrassed apology or graceful acknowledgement of error that I might have hoped for. Instead, her expression shifted from confusion to something that looked almost like anger at having her narrative disrupted by inconvenient facts. "Well," she said finally, her voice tight with the strain of someone whose worldview had just been challenged, "I suppose that changes things, but it does not change the fact that marriage should be about love and commitment, not legal documents and financial protection." This response revealed that Patricia's opposition to the prenuptial agreement was not really about protecting James from a gold-digging wife, but about defending her own understanding of marriage as an institution that should transcend practical considerations and operate purely on emotional and spiritual level. My parents, who had remained diplomatically silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke up to offer their perspective on the situation. "Patricia," my mother said gently, "we appreciate your concern for James and your commitment to protecting your family's interests. That is exactly why we believe that clear financial agreements strengthen marriages rather than threaten them. When couples understand their rights and responsibilities, they can focus on building emotional intimacy and partnership rather than worrying about potential future conflict." My father added his own perspective based on decades of successful marriage and business partnership. "In our experience, the couples who struggle most with financial issues are those who avoid difficult conversations and make assumptions about each other's expectations, rather than communicating clearly about their needs and concerns. Alexandra and James are approaching their marriage with the kind of mature planning that gives us confidence in their ability to navigate whatever challenges they encounter together." James, who had been silent throughout most of the confrontation, finally found his voice and spoke with a clarity and conviction that demonstrated his growth into the leadership role he was assuming within his family's business. "Mom, I appreciate your concern, but Alexandra and I have discussed this extensively, and we both believe that a prenuptial agreement will help us build a stronger marriage. She is not trying to take advantage of our family or protect herself from. She is trying to protect both of us and ensure that we approach our marriage as equal partners with clear understanding of our individual and shared responsibility." His words carried the authority of someone who had made his decision based on careful consideration rather than emotional impulse, and they represented a significant moment in his evolution, from son seeking parental approval to adult man making independent choices about his future. The remainder of that evening was awkward but productive in ways that none of us had anticipated. The revelation about my financial independence had fundamentally shifted the dynamics of every conversation and forced everyone to reconsider their assumptions about my motivations and character. Patricia spent the rest of the evening in a state of quiet reflection that suggested she was processing not just the new information about my business success, but the implications of how wrong she had been about my intentions and the appropriateness of her accusation. James and I left that dinner with a renewed sense of partnership and commitment to each other, but also with the sobering understanding that our marriage would begin under the shadow of family conflict that might take years to fully resolve. The prenuptial agreement process that followed was conducted with professional legal assistance and family mediation that helped address everyone's concerns while protecting our individual and shared interests. The final document reflected our commitment to each other while honoring the practical realities of our respective business ownership and inheritance expectations. But as we moved toward our wedding day, I could not escape the feeling that Patricia's accusations had revealed something fundamental about how she viewed me and my place within their family. The truth about my financial independence had changed the facts of the situation, but it had not necessarily changed the underlying dynamics that had led to those accusations in the first place. The story that was unfolding was not just about money, or prenuptial agreements, or family business protection. It was about power, respect, and the challenge of building bridges between different values and expectations about marriage, family, and the role of women in both professional and domestic spheres. As I prepared to become Miss James Morrison, I understood that the real test of our relationship would not be the prenuptial agreement or the wedding ceremony, but our ability to navigate the complex family dynamics that would shape our marriage for years to come. The accusation that I was trapping James for his money had been thoroughly disproven, but the deeper questions about acceptance, respect, and family harmony remained unresolved. Our journey was just beginning, and the lessons I would learn about standing up for myself while building family relationships would prove invaluable in ways I could not yet imagine. Before we continue with this powerful story of transformation and vindication, I want to thank you for joining me in exploring these complex family dynamics that so many couples face. If you believe that financial transparency and mutual respect form the foundation of strong marriages, please consider subscribing. It is free and helps us reach more people who need to hear stories about building relationships based on honesty rather than assumption. The revelation about my business success was just the beginning of a journey that would test everything James and I thought we knew about love, family, and the courage required to build a life together on our own terms rather than others' expectations. The weeks following the dinner revelation settled into an uncomfortable pattern of polite distance and careful communication that felt more exhausting than open conflict. Patricia Morrison had retreated into a defensive posture that manifested as excessive formality whenever we interacted, treating me with the kind of stiff courtesy typically reserved for business acquaintances rather than future family members. Her inability to acknowledge the fundamental error in her assumptions about my financial motivations created a persistent tension that colored every wedding planning discussion and family gathering. Rather than offering the gracious apology that might have cleared the air and allowed us to move forward constructively, Patricia seemed determined to maintain her position that prenuptial agreements represented some form of relationship failure. Even when confronted with evidence that contradicted her original accusation, James found himself caught between his loyalty to his mother and his commitment to our relationship, a position that highlighted the emotional complexity of building adult partnerships while maintaining family connection. He had grown up with tremendous respect for Patricia's opinions and guidance, but our engagement process was forcing him to recognize that her perspectives were not always accurate or helpful, particularly when they were filtered through protective instincts that prevented her from seeing situations clearly. The construction company that had been the foundation of Morrison family identity for 3 generations became an unexpected source of additional tension as James assumed great responsibilities and began making decisions that reflected his own values and priorities rather than simply following established family tradition. His promotion to project manager had coincided with our engagement, creating a complex dynamic where his professional growth was intertwined with his personal evolution into someone capable of building a marriage based on mutual respect and shared decision. My consulting business continued to expand during this period, requiring increased attention to client relationships, project management, and strategic planning that demonstrated my commitment to professional excellence, regardless of family approval or disapproval. Sterling Sustainability Solutions had attracted attention from several major corporations interested in environmental conservancy, and the opportunities for growth required careful consideration of how marriage might affect business ownership, liability, and operational control. The legal process of drafting our prenuptial agreement became an unexpected education in family dynamics, personal values, and the challenge of balancing individual protection with partnership commitment. Our attorney, Sarah Chen, specialized in family law and business protection, bringing experience with couples who needed to navigate complex asset ownership while building strong personal relationships. During our initial consultation, Sarah emphasized that effective prenuptial agreements require both parties to approach the process with complete financial transparency and genuine commitment to protecting each other's interests, rather than simply defending against potential future conflicts. She explained that couples who view prenuptial agreements as collaborative planning tools typically develop stronger marriages than those who approach them as defensive measures against partnership failure. The discovery process revealed the full scope of both our financial situations in ways that deepened our understanding of each other's values, priorities, and approaches to money management. James's assets were primarily tied to his ownership stake in Morrison & Sons Construction, his personal savings from years of careful budgeting, and his potential inheritance of family properties that had been accumulated over multiple generations. My financial portfolio was more diversified and immediately liquid, reflecting my family's approach to wealth building through multiple income streams and investment strategies. Sterling Sustainability Solutions represented my largest asset, but I also maintained investment accounts, retirement planning, and real estate holdings that provided financial security independent of any romantic relationship or family support. The contrast between our asset structures highlighted fundamental differences in how our families approached wealth creation and preservation. The Morrison family had built their financial security through patient development of a single business that provided stable income while requiring constant personal involvement and management attention. My family had pursued wealth creation through multiple ventures that could operate independently and provide passive income streams that allowed for greater personal flexibility and risk management. These differences were not problematic in themselves, but they required careful consideration in structuring a prenuptial agreement that honored both approaches while protecting our individual interests and shared goals. Sarah guided us through discussions about business ownership, inheritance protection, debt responsibility, and income allocation that forced us to articulate our expectations about marriage in ways that many couples never explore before making lifetime commitments. 3 months before our wedding date, Sterling Sustainability Solutions received an acquisition offer from Environmental Solutions International, a larger consulting firm based in Seattle that specialized in corporate sustainability programs for Fortune. The offer represented a significant financial opportunity that would provide immediate capital while allowing me to maintain operational control and continue building the business under a larger corporate umbrella. The decision required careful analysis of how the acquisition might affect our prenuptial agreement, our post-marriage financial planning, and my long-term career goal. Environmental Solutions International was offering a combination of immediate payment and equity participation that could potentially triple my net worth within 5 years. But accepting the offer would require relocating to Seattle and integrating my consulting practice with their existing operation. James's initial reaction to the opportunity was enthusiastically supportive, recognizing that the acquisition represented validation of my business expertise and confirmation that my professional achievements were attracting attention from major players in the sustainability consulting industry. He encouraged me to pursue negotiations with Environmental Solutions International and expressed willingness to consider relocating to Seattle if the opportunity proved beneficial for my career development. However, when we discussed the acquisition offer with our families, the responses revealed deeper philosophical differences about business ownership, career priorities, and the role of geography in family relationships. My parents viewed the offer as an exciting opportunity that reflected years of strategic planning and professional excellence, encouraging me to evaluate it based purely on its merits for my career and financial goals. Patricia's reaction was markedly different and more complex. The acquisition offer seemed to represent another threat to her understanding of how marriage should function and what role wives should play in family business decisions. She expressed concern that accepting the offer would require James to abandon his responsibilities to Morrison & Sons Construction and his commitment to continuing the family business legacy that had been built over 3 generations. Her opposition to the acquisition opportunity revealed the depth of her expectations about how our marriage should operate and what sacrifices I should be willing to make to accommodate Morrison family priorities. From her perspective, my business success was acceptable as long as it remained secondary to James's career advancement and the family's geographic and professional stability. The potential relocation to Seattle forced conversations about priorities, compromise, and the challenge of building a marriage that honored both partners' professional goals, while maintaining family relationships that were important to both of. James's position within Morrison & Sons Construction was not easily transferable, and leaving Chicago would require him to abandon years of relationship building within the company and the broader construction industry. However, James approached the geographic challenge with the same analytical thinking that had made him successful in project management, exploring creative solutions that might allow us to pursue the Seattle opportunity while maintaining his connection to the family business. He proposed a hybrid arrangement where he could spend part of each month in Chicago managing Morrison & Sons projects while developing new business opportunities in the Pacific Northwest construction market. His willingness to consider significant changes to accommodate my career advancement represented a fundamental shift in traditional gender role expectations that had shaped Morrison family dynamics for generations. Previous Morrison wives had been expected to support their husbands' careers while managing domestic responsibilities and maintaining family relationships. But James was proposing a partnership model where both careers received equal consideration and support. Patricia's response to this possibility was immediate and negative, expressing concern that dividing James's attention between two geographic locations would compromise his effectiveness within the family business and threaten the company's stability during a period of growth and expansion. She argued that accepting my acquisition offer would force James to choose between his family legacy and his marriage, a choice that she believed no loving wife should ask her husband to make. The underlying assumption in Patricia's argument was that I should be willing to sacrifice my professional opportunities to support James's career advancement and maintain Morrison family tradition. This expectation reflected generational differences about women's roles in marriage and professional life, but it also revealed the depth of Patricia's investment in maintaining control over family decisions and priorities. Environmental Solutions International's acquisition offer required sophisticated legal review and negotiation that demonstrated the complexity of building business partnerships while planning a marriage that would affect all future financial decisions. The proposed contract included performance milestones, equity participation, and operational control provisions that needed to be carefully balanced with our prenuptial agreement terms and our shared goals for the first years of marriage. Sarah Chen worked closely with business attorneys who specialized in consulting firm acquisitions to ensure that the contract terms would be compatible with our prenuptial agreement and would protect my interests regardless of how our marriage evolved over time. The legal review process revealed several potential complications that required additional negotiation with Environmental Solutions International, including intellectual property ownership, client relationship management, and geographic operation requirements. The negotiation process also highlighted the importance of having independent legal representation and financial advice when making major business decisions that affect marital assets and future earning potential. James insisted on hiring his own legal counsel to review how the acquisition might affect his interests under our prenuptial agreement, demonstrating his commitment to protecting both of us through careful planning rather than blind trust. His proactive approach to legal protection represented a significant evolution from the traditional Morrison family approach to business decisions, which had historically relied on handshake agreements and family relationships, rather than formal legal documentation. James's willingness to embrace sophisticated legal planning reflected his understanding that modern business relationships require protection measures that honor partnership commitments while preserving individual autonomy. The parallel negotiation processes for the business acquisition and the prenuptial agreement created a complex web of legal considerations that required coordination between multiple attorneys and financial advisors. Sarah Chen emphasized that couples who approach major business decisions with this level of professional support typically develop stronger marriages because they learn to communicate effectively about complex issues and make decisions based on complete information rather than assumptions or emotional reaction. While legal negotiations proceeded smoothly with professional support, wedding planning became increasingly complicated as Patricia attempted to assert control over decisions that James and I had hoped to make collaborative. Her inability to accept the reality of my financial independence manifested as passive-aggressive resistance to plans that reflected our shared values and preferences, rather than traditional Morrison family expectations. The venue selection process became the first major battleground in what would become a pattern of conflicts about whose vision would shape our wedding celebration. James and I had researched several options that would accommodate both families while reflecting our commitment to environmental sustainability equity and social responsibility. Our preferred venue was a renovated historic building that operated as a social enterprise, donating profits to local environmental education programs, while providing beautiful event spaces that showcased sustainable design principles. Patricia objected to our venue choice on multiple grounds, arguing that the location was too unconventional for a Morrison family wedding, and that our guests would expect a more traditional setting that reflected the family's established social position within their community. She proposed alternative venues that were more expensive and formal, emphasizing their reputation among Chicago's established business families rather than their alignment with our personal values. The conflict over venue selection revealed deeper disagreements about the purpose and meaning of wedding celebration. James and I viewed our wedding as an opportunity to share our values with friends and family while creating a meaningful ceremony that reflected our commitment to building a partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. Patricia viewed the wedding as a social obligation that should demonstrate the Morrison family's status and respectability within their community network. Her resistance to our venue choice was accompanied by suggestions about guest list management, catering selections, and ceremony details that consistently prioritized traditional formality over personal meaning. She expressed particular concern about how my family's more casual approach to social events might be perceived by Morrison family friends and business associates who would be attending the wedding. The underlying tension in these conversations was Patricia's continued inability to accept that James and I were building a marriage based on equal partnership rather than traditional hierarchical relationships where wives accommodate husbands' family expectations. Every wedding planning decision became an opportunity for her to assert her vision of how Morrison marriages should function and what role I should play within established family dynamics. The cumulative effect of Patricia's resistance to our wedding plans, her opposition to the Seattle acquisition opportunity, and her general attitude toward my business success created a situation that required direct confrontation rather than continued accommodation. James and I realized that our marriage would be undermined from the beginning unless we established clear boundaries about family involvement in our decision-making and mutual respect for our individual achievements and goals. The conversation that would reshape our family relationships took place during a Sunday dinner at the Morrison family home, where Patricia had invited extended family members to discuss wedding plans and share opinions about our various decisions. The gathering included James's uncle Robert and Aunt Margaret, who had been married for 25 years and were considered successful examples of Morrison family values and relationship dynamics. The evening began with pleasant conversation about wedding logistics and family travel arrangements, but the atmosphere shifted when Patricia began sharing her concerns about our venue choice and her opinion that we were making decisions that prioritized my preferences over Morrison family tradition. Her comments were framed as concern for our happiness and the success of our wedding celebration, but the underlying message was clear: I was being selfish and inconsiderate in my approach to wedding planning. The situation escalated when Margaret offered her own perspective on marriage priorities, emphasizing the importance of wives supporting their husbands' family relationships and accommodating established traditions rather than imposing new ideas that might create unnecessary conflict. Her advice was well-intentioned but reflected generational assumptions about gender roles and family hierarchy that were fundamentally incompatible with our approach to building an equal partnership. James's response to these family interventions was firm and unambiguous, demonstrating his evolution into someone capable of defending our relationship while maintaining respect for family members whose opinions differed from ours. He explained that our wedding plans reflected mutual decisions based on shared values and careful consideration of both families' interests, not my unilateral imposition of preferences that ignored Morrison family tradition. His defense of our decision-making process was accompanied by information about my business success and financial independence that he had not previously shared with extended family members. James explained that Sterling Sustainability Solutions was generating substantial revenue and attracting acquisition interest from major corporations, information that reframed every assumption about my motivations and the dynamics of our relationship. The revelation that I possessed greater immediately available assets than James, combined with confirmation that I had initiated the prenuptial agreement process specifically to protect both our interests, created a moment of stunned silence that forced everyone present to reconsider their understanding of our relationship and my role within the Morrison family structure. Margaret's reaction to learning about my business success was markedly different from Patricia's continued resistance to acknowledging the implications of my financial independence. Margaret immediately recognized that my professional achievements represented genuine accomplishment that deserved respect and support, expressing admiration for my entrepreneurial success and curiosity about my consulting work with major corporations. Her shift in perspective was accompanied by questions about my business development strategies and interest in how Sterling's sustainability solutions had achieved such rapid growth in a competitive consulting market. Margaret's background in accounting had given her appreciation for business success that transcended gender expectations, allowing her to recognize professional excellence regardless of traditional assumptions about women's roles in marriage and business. Robert's response was similarly positive, expressing genuine interest in my work with construction companies seeking to implement sustainable building practices and energy efficiency improvement. His recognition that my consulting expertise could potentially benefit Morrison & Sons construction represented an opportunity to bridge family business interests with my professional knowledge in ways that could strengthen both our marriage and the broader family enterprise. The contrast between Margaret and Robert's enthusiastic acceptance of my business success and Patricia's continued resistance highlighted the generational and personal factors that were shaping different family members' reactions to our relationship. The extended family members who could appreciate professional achievement on its own merits were able to support our marriage partnership, while Patricia remained locked in traditional expectations that prevented her from accepting my equal status within the relationship. James's obvious pride in my business accomplishments and his detailed knowledge of my professional goals and achievements demonstrated to everyone present that our relationship was based on mutual admiration and support rather than financial calculation or social climate. His ability to articulate my consulting work and its potential impact on environmental sustainability showed that he valued my intellect and professional contributions as much as my personal quality. The evening concluded with Robert and Margaret expressing enthusiasm about welcoming me into the Morrison family and offering their full support for our wedding plans and future goals. Their acceptance created an alternative family dynamic that would provide emotional support and practical assistance as James and I built our marriage, despite Patricia's continued opposition. However, Patricia's response to the extended family's positive reaction to my business success was to retreat further into defensive positions that would characterize her approach to our relationship for months to come. Rather than acknowledging her errors in judgment or expressing pride in her son's choice of an accomplished partner, she seemed determined to maintain her original interpretation of events regardless of contradictory evidence. The acquisition offer from Environmental Solutions International required a final decision within 2 weeks of the extended family dinner, creating timeline pressure that forced James and me to choose between financial opportunity and geographic stability. The revised contract terms that had emerged from legal negotiations were extremely favorable, offering immediate financial benefits and long-term equity participation that would secure our financial future while allowing me to expand my consulting practice on a national scale. James's analysis of the opportunity reflected his project management expertise and his commitment to supporting my career advancement, even when it required significant personal sacrifice. He had researched the Seattle construction market, identified potential business opportunities that might allow him to establish Morrison & Sons operations in the Pacific Northwest, and developed a comprehensive plan for maintaining his Chicago responsibilities while exploring new geographic markets. His strategic approach to the relocation challenge demonstrated growth in sophistication and independence that represented a fundamental shift in his relationship with family expectations and traditional business practice. Rather than simply rejecting the opportunity because it conflicted with established Morrison family patterns, James was proposing creative solutions that could benefit both my career and the family business, while allowing us to build our marriage on terms that honored both our individual goals. The decision to accept the acquisition offer and relocate to Seattle represented a pivotal moment in our relationship and our independence from family pressures that had been threatening to undermine our partnership before it fully developed. We chose to prioritize our shared future over traditional expectations and geographic convenience, demonstrating our commitment to building a marriage based on mutual support and equal opportunity rather than accommodation to external pressure. Patricia's reaction to our Seattle decision was predictably negative, but her opposition no longer carried the weight it might have held earlier in our relationship. Her inability to recognize my professional accomplishments and her resistance to supporting James's growth into independent decision-making had gradually diminished her influence over our choices and our confidence in her judgment about our relationship. The contrast between Patricia's continued opposition and the broader family's growing acceptance of our partnership highlighted the isolation of her position and the strength of our commitment to building a marriage that would thrive regardless of external approval or disapproval. Our wedding would proceed as planned, but our future would be built in Seattle, where we could develop our careers and relationship without constant pressure to conform to expectations that no longer served our shared goals. As we finalized our decision to accept the acquisition offer and begin planning our relocation to Seattle, I reflected on the journey from Patricia's initial accusations about my financial motivations to the reality of our upcoming marriage built on mutual respect, professional success, and shared commitment to environmental sustainability. The prenuptial agreement that had once seemed like a source of family conflict had become the foundation for financial security that would allow us to pursue ambitious goals without fear of personal or professional failure. The wedding planning process had revealed fundamental differences in values and expectations that would continue to shape family relationships for years to come, but it had also demonstrated our capacity to make difficult decisions based on shared principles rather than external pressure. Our marriage would begin with clear understanding of our individual strengths, our mutual goals, and our commitment to supporting each other's success, regardless of traditional expectations or family approval. The story that had begun with accusations about gold digging and financial manipulation had evolved into a narrative about professional achievement, equal partnership, and the courage required to build a life based on personal values rather than inherited limitations. Our journey to Seattle would represent not escape from family obligations, but graduation into adult independence that honored our heritage while embracing possibilities that previous generations had never imagined. The morning of our wedding dawned with the kind of perfect September weather that Chicago reserves for its most important occasion. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the boutique hotel where my bridal party had gathered for final preparations, creating an atmosphere of celebration and anticipation that I had dreamed about throughout our engagement process. The renovated historic venue we had chosen gleamed in the distance, its sustainable design features and social enterprise mission representing everything James and I valued about building a future that honored both tradition and innovation. My mother moved through the preparation space with the calm efficiency that had characterized her approach to every major family milestone, coordinating hair appointments and photography schedules while ensuring that every detail reflected our vision for a ceremony that would celebrate both families while honoring our commitment to environmental responsibility and social consciousness. Her presence provided the steady foundation of support that allowed me to focus on the emotional significance of the day rather than logistical concerns that might otherwise have created stress during such an important transition. The acquisition paperwork for Sterling Sustainability Solutions lay completed on the hotel room desk, signed and notarized 2 days earlier in a ceremony that had felt almost as significant as our upcoming wedding. Environmental Solutions International had exceeded their original offer term, providing immediate capital and equity participation that would transform my business from a successful regional consulting practice into a nationally recognized sustainability consulting firm with resources to pursue projects that could create meaningful environmental impact on a corporate scale. James had insisted on being present for the acquisition signing, understanding that this business milestone represented not just financial success but validation of years of strategic planning and professional excellence. excellence that had shaped my identity long before we met. His pride in my accomplishment was evident in every conversation about our upcoming relocation to Seattle and the opportunities that would become available through our partnership with Environmental Solutions International. The contrast between his enthusiastic support for my career advancement and his mother's continued resistance to our major life decisions had become increasingly stark throughout our final wedding preparation. Tricia had maintained her position that accepting the acquisition offer represented an unnecessary risk that would complicate our marriage and potentially compromise James's responsibilities to Morrison & Sons construction. Despite his detailed explanations about how the Seattle expansion could benefit the family business through new market opportunities and construction industry connection, her persistent opposition to our professional decisions had created an undercurrent of tension that threatened to overshadow what should have been a celebration of love, commitment, and the beginning of our life together as equal partners in marriage and business. However, James and I had learned to compartmentalize family disapproval while maintaining our commitment to making decisions based on shared values and mutual support rather than external expectations or traditional limitations. The wedding ceremony itself unfolded with the kind of emotional resonance and spiritual significance that transforms legal commitments into sacred partnerships. Our chosen venue provided the perfect backdrop for vows that emphasized mutual respect, shared goals, and our commitment to supporting each other's growth throughout whatever challenges and opportunities the future might present. The sustainable design elements of the historic building created an atmosphere that reflected our values while honoring the solemnity of marriage as both personal commitment and social institution. James's father, Robert Morrison Sr., had agreed to officiate the ceremony through his ordination as a non-denominational minister, a role that allowed him to incorporate both families' spiritual traditions while emphasizing the partnership model of marriage that James and I were embracing. His words during the ceremony reflected genuine understanding of our relationship dynamics and appreciation for the equal contributions we were both bringing to our marriage, creating a foundation of family support that would prove crucial during the challenges ahead. The guest list represented a careful balance between Morrison family traditions and Sterling family values, bringing together construction industry professionals and environmental consulting clients in an atmosphere of celebration that transcended professional and cultural differences. The presence of Environmental Solutions International executives among our wedding guests highlighted the significance of my business success and provided concrete evidence that our relocation to Seattle was motivated by genuine career opportunity rather than attempts to escape family obligations. Tricia's behavior during the ceremony was formally correct but emotionally distant, maintaining the polite facade that had characterized her interactions with me since the revelation of my financial independence. Her inability to express genuine enthusiasm about James's marriage to an accomplished professional partner was becoming increasingly obvious to extended family members and family friends who had expected maternal pride and celebration rather than resigned tolerance. The vows that James and I exchanged reflected months of discussion about our shared vision for marriage, as a partnership between equals who would support each other's professional goals, while building a personal relationship based on mutual respect and clear communication. Our commitment to honoring both individual achievements and shared aspirations was evident in every word, creating a foundation for marriage that could withstand external pressure and traditional expectations that might otherwise undermine our partnership. The ceremony concluded with the exchange of rings that James had designed to incorporate sustainable materials and ethical gemstones, symbolizing our commitment to making choices that reflected our values even in the most traditional aspects of our relationship. The applause and celebration that followed our first kiss as married partners created a moment of pure joy that temporarily overshadowed the family tensions that had complicated our engagement period. The reception celebration at our chosen venue created opportunities for both families to interact in an atmosphere of shared joy that had been missing during many of our engagement events. The social enterprise model of our venue sparked conversations between Morrison family construction professionals and Sterling family business associates that revealed potential areas of collaboration and mutual interest that none of us had previously considered. Environmental Solutions International executives circulated among our guests, discussing sustainability consulting opportunities and sharing insights about the growing market for environmental responsibility in construction and development projects. Their presence validated my professional achievements while creating networking opportunities that could benefit both our family's business interests in ways that transcended the geographic and cultural differences that had sometimes created communication barriers. James navigated the reception with the confidence and social grace that had made him successful in client relationships and project management roles, introducing guests from different backgrounds and facilitating conversations that highlighted common interests and shared value. His ability to bridge different social and professional circles demonstrated the leadership skills that would serve him well in expanding Morrison & Sons construction into new geographic markets and industry segments. My parents used the reception as an opportunity to share stories about my business development success and professional achievements that many Morrison family members had not fully understood, despite the previous revelations about my financial independence. Their pride in my accomplishments was evident in every conversation, creating an atmosphere of celebration that helped other guests appreciate the magnitude of what James and I had both achieved individually before deciding to build a life together. The formal speeches during the reception dinner reflected the complex family dynamics that had shaped our engagement, while emphasizing themes of love, partnership, and mutual support that transcended traditional role expectation. Robert Morrison Sr.'s toast emphasized his son's growth into a man capable of recognizing and supporting exceptional qualities in his partner, acknowledging my business success as an asset to the Morrison family rather than a threat to established tradition. My father's response highlighted the importance of financial independence and professional excellence as foundations for strong marriages, sharing insights from his own relationship with my mother that had been built on mutual respect and shared commitment to supporting each other's career advancement. His words provided a model for marriage partnership that challenged traditional assumptions while honoring the love and commitment that James and I were celebrating. However, Patricia's contribution to the formal celebration was notably brief and emotionally restrained, offering conventional wishes for our happiness without acknowledging the specific achievements and qualities that had brought us together. Her inability to express genuine enthusiasm about gaining a daughter-in-law with demonstrated professional success and financial independence was becoming increasingly obvious to guests who had expected maternal pride and celebration. During a brief break between reception activities, Patricia approached me for what would become the most significant conversation of our wedding day and potentially our entire relationship. She had requested a private moment to discuss family matters that she believed required immediate attention before James and I departed for our honeymoon and subsequent relocation to Seattle. The conversation took place in a quiet corner of the venue where we could speak openly without being overheard by other guests or family members. Patricia's demeanor was serious and formal, suggesting that she had been planning this discussion throughout the wedding celebration and had chosen this moment for maximum impact and emotional leverage. Her opening words revealed the depth of her continued resistance to accepting my equal status within the Morrison family structure and her determination to assert traditional hierarchy, even after months of evidence contradicting her assumptions about my motivations and qualification. Alexandra, I hope you understand that marrying into the Morrison family comes with certain responsibilities and expectations that may be different from what you experienced in your own family background, she began, her tone carrying the authority of someone accustomed to having her opinions treated as definitive guidance, rather than personal perspective. Her statement immediately established the conversation as an attempt to impose limitations and conditions on my role within the family rather than welcoming discussion about how we might build positive relationships based on mutual respect and appreciation for different strengths and contributions. I appreciate that family traditions are important to you, Patricia, I replied carefully, recognizing that this conversation could either improve our relationship or create permanent damage that would affect James's connections to his extended family. I am genuinely interested in understanding Morrison family values and contributing positively to family relationships while building my marriage with James. My response was designed to acknowledge her concerns while maintaining my position that marriage partnerish requires mutual respect rather than hierarchical submission to established authority figure. I hope to create space for constructive dialogue about expectations and boundaries that could honor both family traditions and modern partnership models. However, Patricia's next words revealed that she was not interested in collaborative discussion but rather in delivering an ultimatum that would force me to choose between family acceptance and personal integrity. The Morrison family has always operated on the principle that family comes first, before personal ambitions or outside opportunities, she continued, her voice carrying increasing intensity as she approached the core of her message. I need to know that you understand this priority and that you will not allow your business interests to interfere with James's responsibilities to the family company and our established way of life. The conversation had quickly evolved from general discussion about family relationships to specific demands about my career priorities and decision-making authority within my marriage. Patricia was essentially demanding that I subordinate my professional achievements and business opportunities to Morrison family preferences, treating my consulting firm and acquisition opportunity as threats, rather than assets, that could benefit everyone involved. Her ultimatum represents everything that James and I had been working to avoid throughout our engagement process. The imposition of traditional gender role expectations that would require me to sacrifice my professional identity and financial independence to accommodate family traditions that had not been designed to include accomplished women as equal partners. Patricia, I think there may be some misunderstanding about how James and I approach decision-making in our marriage, I responded, maintaining calm professionalism despite the growing tension in our conversation. We make major decisions together based on what is best for our partnership and our shared goals, which include supporting each other's professional success and contributing positively to both our families' interests. My attempt to redirect the conversation toward collaborative partnership models was met with escalating demands that revealed the depth of Patricia's investment in maintaining control over family dynamics and her son's major life decisions. James has responsibilities that existed long before he met you, she replied, her voice rising enough to risk being overheard by nearby guests. The Morrison family business has supported 3 generations of our family, and I will not stand by while you convince my son to abandon his heritage for your personal financial gain. The accusation of personal financial gain was particularly ironic, given that my business success exceeded James's current assets, and that I had consistently advocated for protecting his inheritance through our prenuptial agreement. However, Patricia's words revealed that facts had become less important to her than maintaining narrative control over family relationships and traditional power structure. I have never asked James to abandon anything, I said firmly, recognizing that this conversation required clear boundaries rather than continued attempts at diplomatic accommodation. I have consistently supported his career advancement and his connections to Morrison & Sons Construction. Our relocation to Seattle represents an opportunity for both our careers, not a choice between family loyalty and personal success. The fundamental disconnect between Patricia's interpretation of events and the reality of our relationship had reached a point where further discussion seemed unlikely to produce understanding or resolution. Her commitment to traditional family hierarchy prevented her from accepting the partnership model that James and I were building, regardless of evidence about my professional qualifications or our mutual decision-making process. In an attempt to demonstrate that our Seattle relocation could actually benefit Morrison family interests rather than threatening them, I decided to share information about the business opportunities that Environmental Solutions International had identified through my consulting work with construction companies seeking sustainability improvement. I think you would be interested to know that my work with Environmental Solutions International has identified significant opportunities for construction companies that specialize in sustainable building practices and energy efficiency improvement. Hoping to reframe our conversation around concrete business benefits rather than abstract concerns about family loyalty. The federal government is implementing new environmental regulations and incentive programs that will require most major construction projects to meet specific sustainability standards within the next 5 years. Companies that develop expertise in these areas now will have competitive advantages that could substantially increase their revenue and market share. The information I was sharing represented months of research and analysis that had shaped Environmental Solutions International's interest in acquiring my consulting firm. The construction industry was experiencing fundamental changes that would reward companies capable of adapting to environmental requirements while maintaining cost-effectiveness and project quality standards. Morrison & Sons Construction could potentially expand into the Pacific Northwest market specifically to take advantage of these opportunities, I continued, outlining possibilities that James and I had discussed extensively during our preparation for relocation. Seattle and Portland have some of the most progressive environmental regulations in the country, creating demand for construction expertise that most companies are not yet prepared to provide. My explanation was designed to demonstrate that our move to Seattle could create business opportunities that would benefit the Morrison family enterprise rather than threatening James's connection to established operations. Environmental Solutions International had expressed interest in developing strategic partnerships with construction companies that could implement their sustainability recommendations, creating potential revenue streams that could complement traditional Morrison & Sons service. However, Patricia's response to this information revealed that her opposition to our relocation was not primarily motivated by practical business concerns, but by emotional resistance to changes that would reduce her influence over James's decision-making and daily life. James's place is here, with his family and the business that has been built for his benefit, she replied, dismissing the business opportunities I had outlined without serious consideration of their potential value. No amount of money is worth abandoning the relationships and responsibilities that define who we are as a family. The conversation had reached a point where diplomatic approaches were clearly ineffective, and Patricia's continued resistance to acknowledging reality required direct confrontation with facts that she had been avoiding since learning about my business success. Her ability to maintain traditional assumptions about our relationship depended on ignoring evidence that contradicted her preferred narrative about marriage roles and financial motivation. I need to clarify some facts about our financial situation that may help you understand why your concerns about my motivations are not supported by evidence, I said, recognizing that this moment required complete transparency rather than continued accommodation of her emotional resistance to change. The acquisition of Sterling Sustainability Solutions will provide immediate payment of $1 million plus equity participation that could be worth an additional $2 million within 5 years. My current personal assets, including business ownership and investments, total approximately. These figures represent my independent financial success, not money that I am gaining through marriage to James. The numbers hung in the air between us like a mathematical proof that demolished every assumption Patricia had maintained about my relationship with her son. My financial independence was not theoretical or future-oriented but concrete and immediately verifiable through legal documents and bank records that had been thoroughly reviewed during our prenuptial agreement process. In contrast, James's current assets are primarily tied to his ownership stake in Morrison & Sons Construction and his personal savings, which total approximately $180,000, I continued, providing complete financial transparency that revealed the true dynamics of our economic partnership. I am not marrying James for financial security because I have already achieved financial independence through my own professional success. The revelation that I possessed more than 5 times James's liquid assets completely inverted every assumption that had shaped Patricia's understanding of our relationship and her concerns about my motivations for marriage. The gold-digging accusations that had characterized her early opposition to our engagement were revealed as projections rather than accurate assessments of financial reality. The prenuptial agreement that I insisted upon was designed to protect both our assets and ensure that our marriage is built on love and mutual respect rather than financial dependency or obligation, emphasizing the protective intent that Patricia had consistently misinterpreted as evidence of calculating self-interest. James will retain full ownership of his inheritance from Morrison & Sons Construction, and I will retain ownership of my consulting business and its growth potential. Neither of us is financially dependent on the other, which creates the foundation for genuine partnership rather than economic necessity. Patricia's reaction to this complete financial disclosure was not the gracious acknowledgement of error that might have led to improved family relationships, but rather a final desperate attempt to maintain her narrative about my unsuitability as a Morrison family member. Her investment in traditional power structures was so complete that she could not adjust her position even when confronted with evidence that completely contradicted her foundational assumption. "Money is not everything, Alexandra," she replied, her voice carrying the strain of someone whose worldview was crumbling but who remained committed to defending positions that no longer made logical sense. "James needs a wife who will support his family obligations and understand her role within our established traditions, not someone who will constantly pull him away from his responsibilities with ambitious schemes and selfish pursuits." Her words revealed that financial concerns had never been her primary motivation for opposing our marriage, but rather had served as acceptable justification for deeper resistance to changes in family dynamics and power relationships. Patricia's real objection was not that I might take advantage of James financially, but that our partnership model threatened her central role in shaping family decisions and maintaining traditional hierarchy. "Our marriage is based on mutual support and shared decision-making," I responded, maintaining professional composure despite the personal nature of her attacks on my character and motivation. "James and I respect each other's professional achievements and personal goals, which creates the foundation for a stronger marriage than relationships built on dependency and traditional role limitation." The fundamental philosophical difference between Patricia's understanding of marriage as hierarchical submission and our commitment to equal partnership had reached the point where further discussion seemed unlikely to produce understanding or resolution. Her inability to accept that contemporary marriages could operate successfully on different principles than those that had shaped previous generations created an impasse that would continue to affect family relationships regardless of our patience or diplomatic effort. "I hope that eventually you will be able to appreciate the strength of our marriage and the positive contributions that both James and I can make to Morrison family interests," I concluded, recognizing that this conversation had revealed permanent differences in values and expectations that could not be resolved through compromise or accommodation. "Our success as a couple and our professional achievements will ultimately demonstrate the value of partnership models that honor both tradition and innovation, even if those models are different from what you expected for James's marriage." The private conversation with Patricia concluded without resolution, but with clear understanding of the positions that would continue to shape our family relationships for the foreseeable future. Her commitment to traditional marriage models and resistance to accepting my equal status within the family structure had been clearly established, just as my commitment to maintaining professional independence and partnership equality had been firmly communicated. James, who had been searching for me during the reception activities, approached as Patricia and I concluded our conversation. His immediate assessment of the situation and his instinctive positioning beside me rather than attempting to mediate between conflicting positions demonstrated evolution into a husband capable of supporting our marriage partnership even when it required disappointing family members who held different expectations. "Is everything all right?" he asked, though his tone suggested that he understood the nature of our conversation and was prepared to address whatever challenges had emerged from Patricia's continued resistance to accepting our relationship dynamic. "Your mother and I have clarified our respective positions about marriage roles and family obligations," I replied diplomatically, providing information without creating additional conflict on our wedding day. "We have different perspectives about how modern marriages can honor family traditions while embracing new opportunities, but we both want what is best for your happiness and success." James's response reflected the wisdom and maturity that had made him capable of building a marriage based on mutual respect rather than family approval or traditional expectations. "I appreciate that both of you care about my well-being, but Alexandra and I make our major decisions together based on what is best for our partnership and our shared goals," he said firmly, establishing boundaries that protected our marriage while maintaining respectful relationships with family members whose opinions differed from ours. Our move to Seattle represents an opportunity for both our careers, and our financial planning ensures that we can support each other's success while maintaining our connections to both families and their traditions. The remainder of our wedding reception proceeded with the celebration and joy that such occasions deserve, despite the underlying tensions that had been revealed through my conversation with Patricia. Our guests shared in the happiness of two people who had found genuine partnership and mutual support, creating memories that would sustain us through whatever challenges our future might present. As the evening concluded and James and I prepared to depart for our honeymoon before beginning our new life in Seattle, I reflected on the journey from Patricia's initial accusations about my financial motivations to the reality of our marriage built on equal partnership and mutual professional respect. The prenuptial agreement that had once seemed controversial was now providing the foundation for financial security that would allow us to pursue ambitious goals without fear of personal or professional failure. Our wedding day had revealed permanent differences in family values and expectations that would continue to influence relationships for years to come, but it had also demonstrated our capacity to maintain integrity and partnership despite external pressure and traditional limitations. The story that had begun with accusations about gold digging had evolved into a celebration of professional achievement, equal partnership, and the courage required to build a marriage based on personal values rather than inherited expectations. The truth about my financial independence and business success had been fully revealed, but Patricia's reaction suggested that facts alone would not resolve deeper conflicts about power, tradition, and the changing roles of women in marriage and professional life. Our future would be built in Seattle, where we could develop our relationship and careers without constant pressure to conform to expectations that no longer served our shared goals for building a life together as equal partners in every sense. Our honeymoon in the Maldives provided the perfect sanctuary for processing the complex family dynamics that had shaped our wedding day while planning the practical details of our upcoming relocation to Seattle. The pristine beaches and overwater bungalows of our resort created an environment where James and I could discuss our future without the constant pressure of family expectations and traditional obligations that had complicated our engagement period. The 10 days we spent in this tropical paradise allowed us to develop detailed strategies for managing our bicoastal lifestyle, coordinate the logistics of merging my consulting practice with Environmental Solutions International, and establish communication protocols that would maintain James's involvement with Morrison & Sons construction while allowing him to explore new business opportunities in the Pacific Northwest construction market. Environmental Solutions International had provided comprehensive relocation assistance that exceeded our expectations, arranging temporary housing in downtown Seattle and connecting us with real estate professionals who specialized in helping business executives find permanent residences that could accommodate home office requirements and frequent travel schedules. The company's commitment to supporting my transition demonstrated their genuine investment in the success of our business partnership rather than simply acquiring consulting contracts and client relationships. James used our honeymoon time to research the Seattle construction industry, identifying potential partners and competitors while developing preliminary business plans for establishing Morrison & Sons operations in Washington state. His analysis revealed significant opportunities for construction companies that could provide sustainable building expertise and energy efficiency improvements, validating the business rationale that had supported our decision to accept the acquisition offer despite family opposition. The contrast between our honeymoon planning sessions and the family conflicts that had characterized our engagement period was remarkable in its demonstration of how effective partnership could operate when both parties shared commitment to mutual success and clear communication about individual goals, shared priorities. Our conversations about professional development, financial planning, and family relationship management flowed naturally because we approached these topics as collaborative problem-solving rather than negotiations between competing interests. However, the tranquility of our honeymoon was periodically interrupted by phone calls and text messages from Chicago that revealed ongoing family discussions about our relocation decision, and Patricia's continued efforts to convince other family members that our move to Seattle represented abandonment of Morrison traditions and responsibilities.
These communications created underlying tension that reminded us that our return to the United States would require navigating family relationships that had not been resolved by our wedding celebration or the revelation of my financial independence. Our arrival in Seattle marked the beginning of the most professionally challenging and personally rewarding period of our marriage. Environmental Solutions International had exceeded their promises about integration support, providing office space in their downtown headquarters that overlooked Elliott Bay, and offering administrative assistance that allowed me to focus on client relationships and business development rather than operational logistics that could have overwhelmed the transition process. The company's existing client base included several major corporations that were implementing comprehensive sustainability programs, creating immediate opportunities for consulting projects that were larger and more complex than anything I had managed during my independent practice. These assignments required sophisticated analysis of supply chain environmental impact, energy efficiency optimization, and regulatory compliance strategies that challenged my expertise while providing learning experiences that would enhance my professional capabilities for years to come. James approached his own career transition with the same strategic thinking that had made him successful in project management roles at Morrison & Sons Construction. Rather than immediately attempting to establish Pacific Northwest operations for the family business, he accepted a position with Cascade Construction Management, a Seattle-based firm that specialized in sustainable commercial development and had expressed interest in his Chicago construction experience and his connections to Environmental Solutions International sustainability consulting services. His decision to work for another company before launching Morrison & Sons Seattle operations was both pragmatic and strategic, allowing him to develop local industry relationships and understand regional construction practices while earning income that would support our household expenses during my business integration period. This approach demonstrated the mature decision-making that had characterized our relationship while providing concrete evidence that our relocation was motivated by genuine career development rather than attempts to escape family obligation. The professional integration process revealed unexpected synergies between our respective expertise areas that created opportunities for collaboration and mutual support that we had not anticipated during our engagement planning. James's construction industry knowledge complemented my environmental consulting work in ways that enhanced both our professional capabilities and our potential for joint business development projects that could benefit from combined technical and sustainability expertise.
Environmental Solutions International executives quickly recognized the value of having construction industry connections through James's background and began including him in client meetings, where building implementation of sustainability recommendations required coordination between environment consulting and construction management. These collaborations created revenue opportunities for both our careers, while demonstrating the practical benefits of our partnership model for business development and client service excellence. While James and I were establishing our professional lives in Seattle, Patricia had begun a systematic campaign to undermine our relocation decision through communications with extended family members, family business associates, and long-term Morrison family friends, who might be influenced to support her position that our move represented abandonment of family responsibilities and traditional values. Her strategy involved framing our relocation as evidence that I had manipulated James into prioritizing my career advancement over his family obligation. Despite the clear evidence that our decision had been made collaboratively and that James's Seattle career opportunities were substantial enough to justify the geographic transition, she consistently portrayed our move as temporary abandonment that would eventually result in James returning to Chicago once he realized the superiority of family-based business relationships over corporate employment and partnership marriages. The family friends and business associates who received these communications were generally supportive of Patricia's traditional family values, but lacked complete information about our actual circumstance, including the financial realities that had motivated our decision-making and the professional opportunities that had made Seattle attractive for both our careers. Their well-intentioned expressions of concern about family unity and traditional marriage roles were based on incomplete understanding of contemporary partnership models and the changing nature of professional opportunities in environmental consulting and sustainable construction. Patricia's campaign included regular phone calls to James that were designed to create guilt about his absence from family gatherings and business meetings, emphasize the challenges that Morrison & Sons Construction was experiencing without his daily involvement, and suggest that our marriage was creating unnecessary complications for family relationships and business operations. These communications were carefully crafted to avoid direct criticism of me, while consistently implying that our partnership model was creating problems that could be resolved by returning to traditional geographic and professional arrangement. James's responses to these family pressure tactics demonstrated his continued growth in independence and confidence about our shared decision-making processes. Rather than becoming defensive about our choices or attempting to justify our relocation through detailed explanation, he consistently redirected family conversations toward positive updates about our professional success and our commitment to maintaining family relationships despite geographic distance. His ability to maintain emotional boundaries while preserving family connections reflected the maturity and communication skills that had made our marriage partnership successful from the beginning. He understood that Patricia's campaign was motivated by emotional resistance to change, rather than legitimate concerns about family welfare or business operation, and he responded with patience and firmness that honored his love for his family while protecting our marriage from external manipulation. The first quarter of my integration with Environmental Solutions International exceeded all performance projections, generating consulting revenue that was 30% higher than the most optimistic forecasts that had shaped the acquisition negotiation. The combination of my existing client relationships, the company's corporate resources, and the expanded market opportunities available through their national network created synergies that benefited everyone involved in the business partnership. Major corporations, seeking comprehensive sustainability consulting services, were attracted to the combination of technical expertise and practical implementation experience that our integrated consulting team could provide. Projects that had previously required coordination between multiple consulting firms could now be managed through single-source relationships that reduced costs, while improving communication and project coordination efficiency. James's position at Cascade Construction Management provided complementary opportunities for professional development and revenue generation that enhanced our combined earning potential while building industry relationships that would support future business development initiatives. His understanding of both traditional construction practices and sustainable building techniques made him valuable for projects that required balancing environmental goals with cost-effectiveness and construction timeline constraints. The financial success of our Seattle relocation was becoming undeniable even to family members who had opposed our decision-making. The monthly income reports that I shared with our families demonstrated that our combined earnings had increased by more than 40%, compared to our Chicago-based compensation, while our living expenses remained manageable through careful budgeting and the cost-effectiveness of our Seattle housing arrangement. Environmental Solutions International had also begun discussing equity participation opportunities that could provide long-term wealth building beyond our current compensation level. The company's growth trajectory and market position suggested that employees who demonstrated exceptional performance and business development capabilities might be offered ownership stakes that could create substantial financial benefits over the next 5 to 10 years. These opportunities represented the kind of career advancement that would have been impossible within the traditional Morrison family business structure, regardless of James's capabilities or professional dedication. The corporate resources and national market reach available through Environmental Solutions International created possibilities for wealth creation and professional recognition that validated our decision to prioritize career development over geographic convenience and family tradition. Our financial success in Seattle enabled us to pursue real estate investments that would provide both immediate tax benefits and long-term wealth accumulation opportunity. The Pacific Northwest real estate market offered compelling investment properties that combined residential rental income with appreciation potential in markets that were experiencing sustained population growth and economic development. James's construction industry expertise proved invaluable for evaluating investment properties and identifying renovation opportunities that could enhance rental income while building equity through property improvement. His ability to assess construction costs and project timelines allowed us to pursue investment strategies that other buyers could not evaluate effectively, creating competitive advantages in real estate markets, where most investors lacked technical construction knowledge. Our first investment property was a duplex in the Capitol Hill neighborhood that required substantial renovation but offered excellent rental income potential once improvements were complete. James managed the construction work through his industry connections, while I handled financial analysis and tenant relationship management, creating a collaborative investment approach that maximized our combined expertise while building additional income streams. The property investment success demonstrated another dimension of our partnership model that created value through combined skills and shared decision-making. Rather than competing with each other or limiting our activities to traditional gender role expectations, we approached business opportunities as complementary team members, whose different backgrounds and expertise areas could generate superior results compared to individual effort. Environmental Solutions International executives expressed interest in our real estate investment activities and began consulting with us about corporate real estate decisions that required both environmental analysis and construction expertise. These consulting opportunities created additional revenue while building professional relationships that could support future business development initiatives. The financial returns from our property investments exceeded our projections during the first year, generating rental income that covered our housing expenses while building equity that enhanced our long-term financial security. These results provided concrete evidence that our relocation to Seattle was creating multiple revenue streams and wealth-building opportunities that would not have been available through traditional career paths in Chicago. Patricia's campaign to convince James to return to Chicago intensified as news of our financial success reached Morrison family members and business associates, who had initially supported her position that our relocation represented poor decision-making and abandonment of family responsibility. The undeniable evidence of our professional achievements and financial gains created cognitive dissonance for family members who had expected our Seattle experiment to fail and result in our return to traditional geographic and professional arrangements. Morrison & Sons Construction was experiencing operational challenges that Patricia attributed to James's absence, though objective analysis suggested that these difficulties were related to broader construction industry trends and competitive pressures, rather than specific personnel shortage. The company's revenue had declined slightly during the months following our relocation, but this trend had begun before our departure and reflected market conditions that affected most regional construction companies regardless of their management structure. Patricia's interpretation of these business challenges as evidence that James was needed in Chicago ignored the reality that modern construction companies could maintain family involvement and leadership while pursuing geographic expansion and new market opportunities. Her traditional understanding of family business operations assumed that success required all family members to remain in single geographic locations and focus exclusively on established business practices, rather than exploring growth strategies that might require temporary relocation or partnership with other companies. The pressure tactics that Patricia employed included sharing selective financial information about Morrison & Sons construction performance, while withholding context about industry conditions and competitive challenges that were affecting all regional construction companies. She emphasized the emotional significance of family business continuity while downplaying the business rationale for geographic expansion and market diversification that could strengthen the company's long-term viability. James responded to these pressure tactics with increased communication about his plans for establishing Morrison & Sons operations in the Pacific Northwest and his ongoing involvement in Chicago business decisions through remote participation in planning meetings and strategic discussion. His approach demonstrated that family business involvement could evolve to accommodate contemporary professional opportunities while maintaining commitment to family enterprise success and traditional value. The conversations between James and his family about business responsibilities and geographic obligations revealed fundamental differences in understanding about how family enterprises could adapt to changing market conditions while preserving their core identity and value. Patricia's resistance to innovation and expansion reflected generational assumptions about business operations that might have been appropriate in previous decades, but were increasingly limiting in contemporary competitive environments. Environmental Solutions International announced its selection as Sustainability Consulting Firm of the Year by the American Business Environmental Council, recognition that reflected the company's innovative approaches to corporate environmental responsibility and its success in helping major corporations achieve measurable improvements in sustainability performance. The awards ceremony in Washington, D.C. provided opportunities for networking with government officials and corporate executives who were implementing large-scale environmental initiatives. My role in the company's award-winning projects was specifically recognized through inclusion in the award presentation and opportunities to speak at conference sessions about successful sustainability consulting methodology. This professional recognition validated years of expertise development and strategic business building while creating platforms for thought leadership that would enhance my industry reputation and future business development opportunity. James accompanied me to the awards ceremony and related conference events, where his construction industry background proved valuable for discussions about implementing sustainability recommendations in practical building and development projects. Corporate executives and government officials appreciated having access to both environmental consulting expertise and construction implementation knowledge, creating networking opportunities that could benefit both our careers and our collaborative business development initiative. The media coverage of Environmental Solutions International's award included specific mention of my contributions to the company's success and recognition of my background as an entrepreneur who had built successful independent consulting practice before joining the larger firm. This publicity enhanced my professional credibility while providing evidence that the acquisition had been mutually beneficial rather than representing corporate absorption of small business assets. The award recognition created new business development opportunities that would require expanded consulting capabilities and potentially additional staff hiring that could accelerate Environmental Solutions International's growth trajectory. Company executives began discussing succession planning and ownership transition strategies that could provide equity participation opportunities for key employees who demonstrated exceptional performance and business development capability. These discussions represented exactly the kind of career advancement opportunities that had motivated our decision to accept the acquisition offer and relocate to Seattle despite family opposition and traditional geographic constraints. The professional recognition and business growth that were resulting from our strategic decisions provided concrete validation of our partnership model and our commitment to pursuing ambitious goals through mutual support and collaborative planning. Our success with the Capitol Hill duplex investment encouraged us to pursue additional real estate opportunities that could build substantial wealth through rental income and property appreciation in Seattle's rapidly growing real estate market. James's construction expertise and my financial analysis capabilities created competitive advantages that allowed us to identify undervalued properties and renovation opportunities that other investors could not evaluate effectively. Our second investment property was a single-family home in the Ballard neighborhood that required extensive renovation but offered excellent potential for rental income and long-term appreciation. The property's location near major employers and transportation infrastructure made it attractive for young professionals who represented the demographic group most likely to provide stable rental income and responsible property maintenance. James managed the renovation project using sustainable building practices and energy efficiency improvements that would reduce operating costs while enhancing the property's appeal to environmentally conscious tenants. His ability to coordinate construction work while maintaining quality standards and budget constraints demonstrated project management skills that were directly applicable to his professional responsibilities at Cascade Construction Management. The renovation process created additional networking opportunities with local contractors, suppliers, and real estate professionals who could provide referrals and partnership opportunities for future investment projects. These business relationships were building the foundation for potential independent consulting or construction management activities that could complement our current employment while creating additional revenue streams and professional development opportunities. Environmental Solutions International executives expressed interest in our real estate investment activities and began consulting with us about corporate facility decisions,
that required both environmental analysis and construction project management. These consulting assignments created additional income while demonstrating the value of our combined expertise for addressing complex business challenges that required multidisciplinary problem-solving approach. The financial returns from our expanding real estate portfolio were providing monthly cash flow that exceeded our living expenses while building equity that enhanced our long-term financial security and wealth accumulation goals. These investment results represented exactly the kind of financial independence and wealth building that I had pursued through my original consulting business development and that had motivated our strategic career decisions, despite family pressure and traditional limitations. Patricia's recognition that our Seattle success was creating permanent rather than temporary changes in family dynamics prompted her to initiate direct communication with me about improving our relationship and finding ways to maintain family connections, despite geographic distance and philosophical differences about marriage and career priorities. Her outreach represented a significant shift from her previous approach of working through James and other family members to influence our decision.
The conversation took place through a carefully worded email that acknowledged my professional achievements, while expressing concern about maintaining family relationships and ensuring that geographic distance did not create permanent barriers to family involvement and traditional Morrison family activities. Her tone was more conciliatory than her previous communications, suggesting genuine desire to find common ground rather than continuing adversarial approaches that had proven ineffective. Her message included specific requests for regular communication about our professional activities and business development initiatives, invitations to participate in family celebrations and business meetings through video conferencing, and suggestions for coordinating visits that would allow us to maintain involvement in Morrison family traditions while pursuing our Seattle career opportunities. The shift in Patricia's approach reflected her growing understanding that our relocation was creating substantial financial benefits and professional opportunities that made return to Chicago unlikely regardless of family pressure or traditional expectations. Her willingness to explore accommodation and compromise represented recognition that family relationships could evolve to accommodate contemporary career patterns and geographic mobility. My response emphasized our continued commitment to maintaining family relationships while building our careers and marriage partnership according to principles that honored both tradition and innovation. I expressed appreciation for her recognition of our professional success and willingness to explore communication strategies that could preserve family connections despite geographic distance and different approaches to career and marriage priorities. The exchange created opportunities for improved communication and mutual understanding that could benefit all family members while respecting the decisions and values that had shaped our relocation and career development strategies. The possibility of building positive family relationships based on mutual respect rather than traditional hierarchy suggested that our success could ultimately strengthen rather than threaten Morrison family unity and tradition. James's response to his mother's reconciliation overtures was cautiously optimistic, recognizing the potential for improved family relationships while maintaining boundaries that protected our marriage partnership and career development autonomy. His approach demonstrated the mature communication skills and emotional intelligence that had made our marriage successful, while honoring his love for his family and commitment to preserving positive relationships despite philosophical differences. The evolving family dynamics suggested that our continued success in Seattle might eventually transform resistance into acceptance and create new models for maintaining family connections across geographic distances and generational differences in career and marriage expectations. The story that had begun with accusations about financial motivations was developing into a narrative about successful adaptation to contemporary opportunities while preserving valuable family relationships and traditional values that remained relevant for modern circumstances. Environmental Solutions International's recognition as Sustainability Consulting Firm of the Year created unprecedented business development opportunities that would reshape both my career trajectory and our long-term financial planning strategy. The award ceremony had connected our firm with government officials who were implementing large-scale environmental initiatives across multiple federal agencies, creating potential contracts that could generate millions of dollars in revenue over the next 5 years. The Department of Energy announced a comprehensive sustainability assessment program for federal buildings nationwide, requiring environmental consulting services that aligned perfectly with Environmental Solutions International's expertise and capacity. The competitive bidding process would favor firms with demonstrated track records in corporate sustainability consulting and proven ability to manage complex, multi-site projects with strict regulatory compliance requirements. My role in developing the proposal for this federal contract required synthesizing years of consulting experience with sophisticated project management capabilities and regulatory knowledge that few competitors could match. The opportunity represented the kind of career milestone that validates decades of strategic planning and professional development, while creating platforms for national recognition and thought leadership within the environmental consulting industry. James's construction industry background became unexpectedly valuable during the proposal development process, as federal buildings sustainability assessments require detailed understanding of construction systems, energy efficiency technologies, and building performance optimization strategies. His technical expertise complemented my environmental consulting knowledge in ways that strengthened our firm's competitive position, while demonstrating the practical benefits of our collaborative partnership approach. Environmental Solutions International executives recognized the strategic value of our combined capabilities and proposed a formal business development partnership that would provide equity participation in federal contract revenue, while expanding my responsibilities to include national project management and client relationship oversight. This opportunity represented the kind of career advancement that most consultants spend entire careers pursuing, offering both immediate financial benefits and long-term wealth creation potential. The federal contract proposal required extensive collaboration with engineering firms, construction management companies, and regulatory compliance specialists across multiple states, creating networking opportunities that could benefit both our careers and our real estate investment activity. The project scope and complexity demanded the kind of interdisciplinary teamwork that showcased our ability to manage sophisticated business relationships while delivering exceptional results under demanding timeline and quality requirements. Morrison & Sons Construction had experienced significant operational challenges during the months following our Seattle relocation, but comprehensive business analysis revealed that these difficulties stemmed from broader industry trends and competitive pressures rather than James's absence from daily management activity. The construction industry was undergoing fundamental changes that required strategic adaptation and technological innovation to maintain profitability and market competitiveness. Patricia's interpretation of the company's performance challenges as evidence that James was needed in Chicago ignored the reality that successful family businesses must evolve to accommodate contemporary market conditions and professional opportunities, rather than relying exclusively on traditional operational approach. The company's revenue decline reflected industry-wide trends that were affecting most regional construction firms, regardless of their family involvement or geographic concentration strategy. James's remote participation in Morrison & Sons strategic planning sessions had actually introduced innovative approaches to business development and market expansion that were beginning to generate positive results. His Seattle construction industry experience provided insights about sustainable building practices and energy efficiency technologies that represented growing market segments with substantial revenue potential for companies willing to invest in expertise development and certification process. The family business had begun implementing environmental consulting services and sustainable construction practices based on James's recommendations and his connections to Environmental Solutions International expertise. These new service offerings were attracting clients who required regulatory compliance and environmental responsibility in their construction projects, creating revenue opportunities that would not have been available through traditional Morrison & Sons service portfolio. Robert Morrison Sr.'s analysis of these business development initiatives revealed that James's career development in Seattle was actually enhancing his value to the family business, rather than threatening its operational effectiveness. His exposure to innovative construction technologies and environmental consulting methodologies was providing competitive advantages that could differentiate Morrison & Sons from regional competitors, while building expertise that would become increasingly valuable as environmental regulations expanded across the construction industry. The recognition that James's Seattle experience was creating business benefits for Morrison & Sons construction prompted family discussions about establishing formal Pacific Northwest operations that could capitalize on both his industry relationships and the growing demand for sustainable construction services in Washington state markets. These conversations represented a fundamental shift from viewing our relocation as family abandonment to recognizing it as strategic business expansion that could benefit multiple generations of Morrison family members. Our real estate investment success in Seattle had generated sufficient capital and industry relationships to pursue larger development projects that required both construction expertise and environmental consulting capability. The opportunity emerged through James's connections at Cascade Construction Management, which had identified underutilized properties in developing neighborhoods that could support mixed-use development projects combining residential and commercial spaces. The proposed development project involved converting a former industrial site in the South Lake Union District into sustainable residential units, with ground-floor commercial spaces designed to meet emerging environmental standards while providing attractive returns for investors. The project required sophisticated environmental remediation, sustainable design implementation, and community engagement processes that aligned perfectly with our combined professional capabilities and investment objectives. Environmental Solutions International expressed interest in participating in the development project as both environmental consultant and equity investor, recognizing the opportunity to demonstrate sustainable development practices while generating returns that could fund future business expansion initiatives. The firm's involvement would provide access to capital and technical expertise that individual investors could not match, while creating showcase projects that would enhance the company's market reputation and business development capability. James's role in the development project would involve construction management oversight and contractor coordination, utilizing his industry relationships and technical expertise to ensure quality execution, while maintaining budget and timeline constraints. His understanding of both traditional construction practices and sustainable building technologies positioned him to manage complex projects that required balancing environmental goals with cost-effectiveness and market appeal consideration. The development project represented exactly the kind of sophisticated business venture that demonstrated the practical benefits of our partnership model and our commitment to creating value through collaborative expertise rather than individual achievement. Our combined capabilities enabled us to pursue opportunities that neither of us could have managed independently, while building wealth and professional recognition that exceeded our individual career potential. Environmental Solutions International's participation in the development project also created opportunities for additional business development initiatives that could leverage our real estate investment experience for corporate consulting service. Major corporations were increasingly interested in sustainable facility development and environmental risk in their real estate portfolios, creating demand for consulting services that combined environmental expertise with practical development experience. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.